All right, we want to welcome you all in to Coronavirus Inside the Arizona Numbers. We haven't even met with all of you in a while, so I almost forgot to check the date and update you on that. It is March 26th, 2021. We've got a lot of information to cover today since we haven't been with you for a short time here, and we want to get you updated not only on the numbers as we watch everything here in Arizona, but also some of our vaccination rates as we pass the 3 million mark for doses administered here in Arizona. Of course, a lot of changes coming in just the past few hours. The big changes I'll highlight very quickly before we get to Garrett and the numbers is that groups of 50 people or more for events no longer need approval. They don't need to submit for approval anymore. Businesses can still require masks, but any masking mandate has been lifted here in Arizona. The bars and other nightclubs can open. And one of the big things in all of this that just came out of a news conference that just happened with Dr. Kara Christ is that they were saying that the governor's office and AZDHS are the ones who decided to lift this mask mandate and lift it immediately. Hospitals, the people most affected by this, the hospital groups were not in that meeting. It was just those two groups, AZDHS and the governor's office. So we wanted to get you caught up on that as well. If you want to watch the whole press briefing, it's on just before us here on our ABC 15 Facebook page. I know we got a lot of questions. I'm seeing all the questions come in, and we'll make time for that as well. But Garrett, we want to sort of look at where we are in some of these numbers. Over this past year that we've been doing this, the tracking has changed in that, before it was concentrating on cases. And then as we saw hospitalizations increase, really tracking those numbers and sadly deaths following that. And now a bit of a happier moment in this as we track some of these vaccines, but you're doing it all and constantly having to rewrite some of this code to be able to scrape all this data and bring us this information. So update us on where things stand right now.
So yeah, we're gonna obviously skip what's going on day to day now, because unfortunately we're not doing this every single day. So there's really no reason to talk about what's happening on the ground day to day. But that being said, there still is a bunch to talk about. So basically, just to show where we have been in reporting wise right now for the last couple of weeks, you can see we did about a week ago or so, we had sort of a leveling off, and then we started to have a decrease in our reporting again. Our follow this darker line here. This is our positivity rate. You can see that our positivity rate is leveling off a little bit, but at 5%. We're literally straddling 4.5% to 5% right now is what's going on. And then we have a slight increase in the reported number of deaths and a slight decrease in the reported number of tests. So this is what we're looking at. Let's go down to the next one. You can see what I'm saying right now is we tend to be at a valley floor is what I'm calling it. We were at a floor in September, October of last year, and it seems that we're starting to hit that floor right now. You can see it right here with this. This is the weekly change on the number, and now you can see you're starting to see times when that number is going into the positive. And while this number doesn't tell you what, while this graph doesn't tell you the size of the decrease, what it does show you is that the numbers are starting to level off. And this is our vaccines. You can see one of the reasons why our numbers are leveling off is that we have been increasing our vaccine rates. We're now getting very close to 60,000 a day in some cases. You can see there is some daily seasonality here. For some reason, a lot less vaccines are reported on the weekend. And this last number is likely not finished yet. There'll be more reporting. So I want to focus more on this one. You can see that obviously we are still increasing our numbers. There's a slight leveling off, but with the vaccines being just open to everybody and more appointments available just now, I think they did 80,000 today or 30,000 that they made appointments available for.
Yeah, at 11 o'clock today, Garrett, is when 83,000 appointments were opened up. And we're going to see this continue every single Friday. One of the tips that they gave is if you jump online at that Friday time and you're frustrated because they're gone. In fact, today's vaccination appointments were gone in just barely over an hour. We had another batch that came out Wednesday. Those were gone within about 22 minutes, to be specific. So these things are going fast. And if they do, and they will continue to do so for some time, they still suggest that you log on other hours outside of that, or call that number 211 that's there on your screen. Or let me give you one more number to jot down: 1-844-542-8201. There are still appointments here and there available. There's cancellations, there's changes. So many people are saying, why would you ever change or cancel? Things come up, and they have to move an appointment, and that means that spot is open and you could potentially take it. If you are going to try to log on and get one of those appointments on those big Friday dumps when they have all the new doses coming in, the best advice is to go ahead and make your profile early so you're ready to go on that particular day, so you can get in there.
I had an experience with that. Now, I haven't gotten the vaccine yet, only because, as we know, I already had COVID, and I don't want to clog the line up. I have my antibodies. I'm waiting for the line to sort of get, everybody who needs the vaccine more than I do. I'm waiting for them to get it. But
and as we see, you're at home. You're safe at home too. Exactly. So,
but on that point, I did try to on the day that the 16 plus became available. I was, looking to see what the appointment. I wanted to make sure that the website was scaling properly. And yes, I hadn't made a profile yet. And what I can tell you by personal experience is that it took some time for the system to allow me to make a profile. It kept timing out. It timed out for a good 30 to 40 minutes before it would allow me to make a profile. So yes, that advice of making that profile before that 11 o'clock drop in vaccine is very good advice.
So, and when things start to slow down, Garrett, as more and more people get vaccinated, we can talk more about those numbers here in the state of Arizona, and specifically the age groups that are getting vaccinated too. And now that it's open to everyone, at some point we will hit a point of convenience, meaning people will conveniently get it when they're visiting a doctor's office. They won't have to rush out and get it. Maybe they're in a situation like you are, and they're able to hold off. I've had both my shots. To be very transparent with everyone, the reason I was in there early is because I volunteered at the Phoenix Muni site, worked there, and then they give a shot to volunteers at the end of the day. By the way, if you are interested in volunteering, they are still looking for people to volunteer. Greater Hands on Phoenix is who I volunteered through. Their numbers are dropping off a bit just as they get more people who've already gotten their shot, but you can still sign up. You can volunteer a second or third time. If they don't have enough volunteers, don't worry. They will start to bring in paid staff in all of this, but it's just a way to give back to our community and help be part of the change and part of the process. And it's I would say it's a very emotional thing, an overwhelming thing to be a part of, people going through to get their shot, because so many people have incredible stories about what they've been through this past year and what this shot means to them. And it's really fulfilling experience, to say the least. Garrett, as we touch on that, I know there's so many people hopping on this chat, and they know that you had COVID in the past. How are you doing now? You're doing 100% better? Are you
I'm very blessed in that I don't have any sort of long-term symptoms, anything. I haven't experienced any sort of heart arrhythmia or anything like that I know that if you read in the articles, there are people that are experiencing those sorts of things. So far, if there is something, it hasn't manifested itself quite yet. So I'm very fortunate right now in that I don't have anything that I can.
Yeah. That's the good news. And I know that, we've been covering so many cases that were not the same situation over these years. So yeah, in fact, Taisha writes, my pops died 2 weeks ago from COVID. I'll definitely still be wearing my mask. First of all, thank you for sharing. And secondly, we think of your dad and your whole family experiencing this. One of the things, although we here talk about the numbers, one of the things I hope that's come across to all of you is that we've taken time to remember that these numbers represent real lives and real people who have been affected by COVID-19, not only here in our community, but across the United States. And in fact, when we're seeing those numbers, Garrett, we were looking at some of these county cases. We're the fourth most populous county in the United States. So we would expect to land sort of in a fourth place, or if we've done better. If we've done better at managing this, then be in a lower count for both cases and lives lost. And that is not the case in Maricopa County. We're actually now in second place for cases by county, behind LA County.
So
we are in
there too, because we're if we beat LA County, wow.
Right. Yeah, not even close.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Exactly. And second place, sadly, for deaths, also behind LA County. So it just sort of puts it in perspective. If we're normalizing it by population, we should should show up as number 4. And sadly, you know, that is not the case for the state of Arizona. Okay, so let's get back to some of these
Yeah,
specific
I'll
numbers
just
as we
going
look at
down the
this.
numbers really quick, and then we'll go into vaccines. So
Yeah.
just talking about when I talked about valley floor. So this is what our epi case curve looks like right now. So this is the cases by date, and you can see, obviously, this is the surge, the peak, and then we had an extremely aggressive drop off. And now you can see the curve is bending and flattening. And now we're pretty much in this space right here, this early September, late middle October, early October situation in which we tend to be hitting a floor. Now, when I say we're hitting a floor, does that mean that cases will never go down? Well, no, obviously cases will eventually go down to, well, not zero, but it'll get close to zero as we get more vaccinations. However, that will take some time. So when we hit a floor, we should, the expectation is that we should remain here for a while. Now, this is, of course, we do not know what's going to happen in the next several weeks. So I know obviously with case numbers or with the opening happening, with the mask mandates getting removed, I am not going to suggest that that is an immediate situation or a consequence of that will be surging case numbers, because we simply don't know that. So we will have to be watching the data to see in the next week or so if we start to see increasing case numbers, and not only if we're seeing increasing case numbers, but by how aggressive we're seeing increasing case numbers. Because we have at one point, you can see right here, there was a small bump in our cases right here, which was pretty much attributable to the opening of the colleges at the time, ASU, U of A. That is what that bump is. But you can see in the grand scheme of things, that is a very small bump. And the bump really didn't manifest itself into a massive surge until several weeks later. So we do not know yet. And what I'm getting at is that we don't know if this mask ordinance being lifted is going to cause a surge yet. We will have to wait until next week or so to start seeing if we detect a trend upward.
Yeah, and watching even those slight percentage upticks closely, because as we can see reflected in September and October, how quickly then that can change into November.
You see that we're adding about 750 cases a day or a week, if you will. Right now, we removed about 128. That's what accounts for the lower number today, is that 128 were withdrawn or deduplicated from from weeks prior to January. But we added about 745 cases. This is what our case per week looks like from January 24th to now. We're going to ignore this number because it's not quite ready yet, but you can see that the case jump week to week is starting to slow down. This is about 15%. This is about 20%, 24%, 30%. And it goes up from there to the point where obviously this is a massive case drop off. But now we're slowing down to about 15% case decreases right now. And we won't know what this 1,500 looks like until probably next Wednesday or so. So the expectation is, of course, that this 1,500 will not get to 3,900. It will stop at about 3,300. So we're basically going to double where it is right now, but we'll see what's going to happen. We just don't know yet.
All right.
Go quickly through some of these others. This is the test numbers. You can see testing is going down. That is that is also because demand is down. That's very important to know. It's not just a correlation between lower cases and lower tests. There is less demand out there. So that is one of the reasons why we have lowering test numbers. The death numbers you can see are also decreasing. There has been a slow decrease as far as it's slowed down a little bit, but we're still seeing decreases in the death numbers. And that even if we see a surge, it is expected that our death numbers should continue to decrease because we already have a very sizable portion of the at-risk population vaccinated. So these numbers, no matter what happens in the surge, should stay either level or should decrease. Let's see. That might be all I have really.
And pause right there. You're on the exact screen to answer Micah's question. And it's, by the way, Micah, it's so nice to see your name in here. It's so nice to see some of these familiar names and faces that we've spent this last year with. So hopefully you and your family are doing well. Micah's asking, how many active cases are in Arizona right now? And I see that indicator lit there, but his graphic is covering it up. So there we go. Low active case rate.
So this is basically, you can see there's 838,000 cases that have been reported in Arizona for the entirety of the pandemic. So this is basically the cases that are aged under 14 days. So only from the last 2 weeks, there's 23,300. And the high active, which are cases under aged 27 days, 33,000. And we've seen this stay at this level for several days. I'd say like a week or two now. It's stayed at around the low 20s to high to mid 30s in this active estimate. So this is what basically that's the number of confirmed cases that are walking around that could potentially be infectious for COVID-19. And it's going to be somewhere around that range. Those two numbers is where that infectious number is. It's not going down by that much anymore, as I just said. It's sort of staying level between this 20 to 30,000 at this point.
Yeah, still a much better situation than we were in January. Thomas writes, since you aren't on most days, why don't you put a posting on Facebook alerting us when you'll be giving out this useful information? Just a thought, you've been missed. Thomas, thank you so much, first of all, for your comment. We'll try to keep you updated on Facebook too. We've kind of scaled it back to really just updating you guys on Fridays. So our goal is to be here with you every Friday. I'm sorry, I missed last week, so I have to apologize for that. I had a kiddo who was home from school for the day, so I was not here. But hopefully, Thomas, you can catch us most Fridays, and thanks for the sweet compliment there. You guys have been missed too, so good to see all these names in here. All right, so Garrett, one of the things
on Facebook, I'm sorry, I would never have any time to do anything else if I started doing.
Garrett's on Twitter, everyone. Garrett's on Twitter. That's
do it.
Garrett's on Twitter pretty much all the time. If you need to reach him, that's where to find Garrett. He's Twitterverse. There it is. Okay, so the mask mandate was there wasn't a statewide mask mandate, but basically any local mandates are now gone. The order has been rescinded. So businesses can still require masks. And the one thing I want to highlight, because I got so many questions yesterday on it, K through 12 schools are still masked.
Yes.
Federal offices still masked. Sky Harbor Airport still masking. So remember when you're headed those places, and as I posted on Facebook, I am on Facebook and posted that just please be respectful to the businesses who are asking you to wear a mask in there as well. Garrett, when we're looking at the life of this pandemic and we're looking over things, there's a whole ton of information that we can find on AZDHS's site about who was most affected by this. And it's interesting to note, in the life of this pandemic, more women here in Arizona got coronavirus, but more men died of coronavirus. So those numbers.
A situation. This is basically replicable in every single jurisdiction that COVID-19 has been, which is basically worldwide, is this situation in which more women contract COVID-19, but more men die from COVID-19. So the numbers you're talking about here, we're going to start with demographics. This is where the case numbers are. This is the AZDHS website. You come down here and we see the female number, 52% of cases are women, 48% of cases are men. But then when we go to hospitalizations, which is right here, which is obviously the next step for severe cases, you can see it's now flipped 53% male to 47% female. And then when we go to deaths, which is obviously, unfortunately, the final outcome for a few, but it's now 58-42 is how imbalanced it is. So men are, not only are they more hospitalized, but they are much more likely to die than women from COVID-19 complications.
Yeah, and I'm sure there will be many studies in the future on what happened there, if they're more reluctant to seek care or think they can, sort of push through it, or what's happened there, or if there's something biological too. So as we see those studies start to come out, we'll be sure to pass them along. The other thing that people are really concerned about and asking us about a lot, Garrett, is the variants. And the presence of a variant showing up on U of A's campus got a lot of attention and a lot of headlines yesterday because of, how fast things can change on a college campus. Now, no word on whether this was a staff member or if it was a student, but it's obviously concerning to parents who are sending their kids there and the people who are attending there right now. But I see you're pulling up a map related to this.
I am, yes. So you were talking about U of A, but I'm going to talk about ASU because ASU is doing sample testing for the variants at a much larger rate than U of A.
And this is through their Biodesign Institute?
Biodesign Institute. Mm-hmm. This is what's called S-gene dropout. So what an S-gene dropout is that is the COVID-19 has 3 proteins that are basically its biggest signature. And in the UK variant, the 2 of the proteins are they sequence differently, and they do something called an S-gene dropout. Don't ask me to explain the actual medical terminology and what that means, because I cannot. But what I can tell you is that, as you can see, this is the life of the sequencing. And as we've gotten to March, you can see that we're seeing exponential growth in the sample testing of the B117 variable in Arizona. So what that means is that the likelihood right now is that B117 is not, obviously it's in Arizona, but realistically, it's probably close to about 20 to 30% of cases in Arizona are B117 right now.
And they don't test, if I'm understanding what's coming out of the Biodesign Institute, right? They're not testing every single sample, but they're testing
No.
statistically and enough to give us those numbers to say 20% or
Yeah.
1 in 5, something
They
right
can
in
do
there.
some sort of speculation. It could be off,
Yeah.
obviously, but they can do some sort of guessing on that. Now they're not testing for the P1 or the South African variant, the P1 being Brazil, or the
Hmm.
South African variant. Obviously, those are nowhere near as transmissible as B117. So those, as of right now, if you talk to the ASU experts, they're not as concerned of the P1 or the South African variant, simply because really it's this B117 is the transmissible variant. And so they don't know if and when they presume that the B117 variant will become the dominant variant in Arizona. But that's really right now, one of the interesting things they said to us on Wednesday was they don't know. They're kind of going head to head with the California variant. We're the only place in the United States or in the world where this California variant that's been written about is going head to head with the UK variant. So now you've got two transmissible, very transmissible
Hmm.
variants. They don't really know the transmissibility of California compared to other variants right now. So really, now we're going to find out which one is more transmissible. We're the test bed. Now, that doesn't mean, again, when I say this does not mean that cases are going to increase. Again, we don't know that. We just know that the sequencing of these tests is increasingly showing up as B117. As vaccinations are happening, that's one of the reasons why the case numbers are going down. So we're not expecting, even if B117 becomes the dominant variable in Arizona, or variant in Arizona, that does not mean that we're looking at a surge like we had in January. In fact, no one that I've talked to even thinks that that's even a remote possibility at this point, regardless of what the policies are out there, that we would see a January-like surge. There is a possibility that we do see surges, but not what we saw in January. So that's just a very important thing to note when we say this, is we've got these two variants that are very transmissible that are going to compete for the prevalent variant in
Right.
Arizona. And what's going to be interesting is Arizona's the test bed for that. Which one
Yeah.
is bigger? Is California or the UK variant the stronger variant?
Yeah. Okay. So when we're talking about some of these variants, we're also watching what's happening around the world in this. We have some of the biggest one-day case counts in countries all around the world. India, their biggest one-day case jump since October. Chile, Poland, Hungary, Philippines, Ukraine, all had their biggest one-day jump in cases ever. The Netherlands, their biggest jump since early January. Sweden, their biggest jump since December. And then sadly, Brazil, as we all know, struggling so much there, they just had their deadliest day. So those other countries I just talked about, that was their daily case count jumping. Brazil is losing people at this record rate, something that they haven't seen this entire pandemic. Do we have a way to track how things look around the world at the
Yes.
current time? I know there were some places we looked before to sort of put things in perspective, but boy, I have family overseas, and talking to them, I mean, it literally is like a whole different world than what we're experiencing here in Arizona, and getting rid of masks yesterday and things like that. And they're still in lockdown and experiencing curfews, and in the same place they were last March.
So as you can see, I've got 91 DVOC pulled up. We've gone to the site several times in the past. This is basically a place where they're actually tracking a bunch of, they normalize and track the case per 100 for COVID-19 across the world. And you can see, as you said, there is a very significant number of increases in the rest of the world. As you can see, the United States is no longer on this list. So this is the top 10 cases in the world, and you can see U.S. is nowhere in this. Brazil, Uruguay, Bulgaria, France, Poland, Serbia, Jordan, Chechnya, which has at some times been the highest in the world. Hungary and Estonia are the highest. So we go to, even if we do top 25, I think I haven't pushed this button yet. We'll see if United States shows up in this. Let me take Brazil out.
I mean, just look at Brazil off the charts.
Yeah, it's so high that
so sad.
Highlighted, it doesn't do anything. So I'm going to put United States in here and see what happens to see where we are. I've got the bottom 25 in here. We might be by we're on our own there, so we can't use that one. So what we're going to do is top. We will use let's use top 50 by data. See where we show up. We are, of all the countries in the world, the United States right now is basically at the bottom of the top 50. So we're at like number 49 or 48. I think I see Botswana is just below us. But other than that, it's pretty much the U.S. is at the very lowest number. So how did we get there? So if we push this button here, hold on a second. Let me get back to population over. You know what? Let's go to, actually, let's go with what we were using. Sorry, this site has, let's go top 50 with data. And then we're going to generate report right here. And it's going to show what things have looked like. You can see largest percent increases. We're going to look at all these. Botswana, 130%, Kosovo, 60%, France, 55%, Turkey, 47%. So there are significant increases happening in places in the world. In fact, plus 25 in 13 of the jurisdictions. And then the United States is down here at a plus 7%. So we do have a slight increase from last week. But again, that's more of a floor increase. We're right here with Brazil. As far as our percentage. Our decreases right here, you can see several decreases. However, these are very small jurisdictions for the most part. Malta, Slovakia, Czechia, Jamaica, and Montenegro are all very small jurisdictions. And so the data sometimes jumps a little bit faster.
Yeah, it can be skewed because it's such a not as densely populated country. Okay, so the other country that is sort of really concerned about things right now, and that's Germany. They're very concerned that this third wave is going to be the worst for them so far. A lot of these countries not in the same situation as the United States with vaccinations, and they're really sounding an early alarm about how to get this thing under control there.
Yeah, you can see Germany right here. It's been consistently at the very low end of the curve in the world, but they are starting to rise. You can see it right here. They're basically in the same place the United States is, except the United States is on the downswing and they're on the upswing. So yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from, where they're seeing this increase in case numbers that are starting to match what they were 150, 120 days ago. About 4 months ago, and now they're concerned that it will continue going forward. And as you said, I don't think they're in the same situation as we are with the vaccinations.
Yeah. So if you have friends or family in any of those countries we just talked about, reach out to them because this is a tough situation that they're in right now. Meantime, closer to our border here, parts of Mexico are now requiring they want to see that you've been vaccinated, and in other parts, specifically Rocky Point, they're not requiring that you have to be vaccinated to go there, but they are offering an incentive. If you can show your fully vaccinated card there in Rocky Point, there are some businesses and hotels and restaurants that would like to offer you a discount to come be a part of what's going on in Rocky Point and be there safely. So it's just interesting how businesses and hot spots for travel are going to try to welcome you back and still get around some of the guidelines with vaccination. So, all right, let's talk these school numbers. We haven't been able to update folks in a while on some of these zip code numbers and how things work a lot closer to home, but I wanted to give you that broad view of how things look sort of around the world, especially for those of you who have friends and family there.
Yes, let's go to schools. Everyone loves schools. This used to be sort of the bread and butter of this thing, right? We would spend so much
we'd have to, yeah.
Yes. So the schools now, if you haven't been following us for a lot, they've changed sort of the data in the schools as far as the look of the schools. We now have this blue for lowest transmission. We have the red still meaning high transmission, but we also have middle colors now for yellow and orange being substantial and yellow being moderate. This is the elementary schools. You can see for the most part, only very rural elementary school districts are already considered low transmission. Most of Central Phoenix is considered a substantial transmission still. These are decreasing numbers, by the way, because obviously we're about a week behind when we look at these numbers. So we know that the numbers are continually decreasing. But we do still have some little artifacts of red here and there. The high school districts, very similar. Obviously, the high school districts are just larger versions of the elementary schools. So you can see the orange basically takes over for all of those areas. The unified school districts, which is pretty much the suburbs, you can see that the suburban north is at a moderate transmission at this point with about 40 cases per 100. And then the East Valley here, little higher, closer to 70, 80 in some cases. And then we have some rural ones out here like Wickenburg that are at 67 as well. But for the most part, we're starting to see, we'll see probably next week a lot more yellow here. And we may even get to see a blue in one of the school districts here and there. So let's look at the zip codes really quick. This really just shows you what this, how this is really made up. And you can see that for the most part, you were seeing a lot more of the moderate in North Scottsdale. Now, very interesting correlation. I'm going to take you really quick to another site. This hopefully will help people convince them to get vaccinated if they're on the fence, because
you're saying that those numbers mirror exactly the lower rates of cases.
Vaccination. This is the vaccination map for Maricopa County, and you can see there is a direct correlation with zip codes that have very high rates of vaccination. 93% of people in these zip codes have already been vaccinated. And then when you look at the numbers again on let's see, let me stop screen again and go back. And you can see when you look at those other numbers, obviously there is a correlation with that moderate transmission. Those yellow numbers are now basically manifest in this area that has the highest rate of vaccinations in the county. And so there's definitely a correlation there. And you can see we still have some stragglers on the southwestern side of the county. These are the only two left that have an over 100 case per 100. This is 85307 and 85305. I didn't check this one. This one does too. 85363. Those are the only ones that have over 100 at this point. I believe I checked these and neither of them did. Yeah, that one does not anymore. That one does not. And this one, this one does too. 85012. So 4 zip codes that have over 100. Everywhere else is under 100 at this point. We in fact have one zip code, Carefree, that while this is not considered by any means Metro Phoenix, it still is not completely in the boonies, and it is 00 here. So it's a low transmission zip code at this point.
So anybody can find this if you want on days we're not here with you. It's updated on, is it updated on Fridays or Thursdays now?
Thursday mornings, I think.
Okay.
It's on Thursday mornings.
Yeah, we'll continue to go through it on Fridays when we're here with you, but you can always find it on your own, and producer Carrie's added the address right there on the bottom of your screen. It's still not an easy address. It's still a tough address.
Yeah.
So copy it down, or just go to the Maricopa County Health Department site, and that's an easier way to kind of get into that space to find it there. But sorry about the long convoluted name. So we talked about these volunteers and needing some of these volunteers out there on the site. So if you're still having trouble getting an appointment, you can sign up and become a volunteer. So I just want to stress that, even though that they will be calling in some of the staff if they don't have enough people to volunteer, it's just a really great way to get involved, help the community, and then also get your shot at the end of this. So Garrett, when we are only here with folks every couple days, I want to make sure that we also update the projections and show people how things are projected to look for us here. I don't want it to be all doom and gloom when we're looking at some of these countries, although we're thinking of what they're going through. It's a different situation here in Arizona and in the United States.
Yes, so the projections, now this obviously does not presume no masks any longer. So there's really, that's going to be very difficult to project. In fact, as someone who looks at these models all the time, I would caution you greatly about even looking at someone who does a no mask model right now, because really a no mask model really depends on, it's predicated on how many people are vaccinated and how many people have already received had COVID-19.
Right.
Without those numbers, you could see it balloon artificially if those numbers aren't properly plugged in. That being said, this is where we are right now. I am going to keep both of actually, let me just take out universal masks, because we're not going to have universal masks, obviously. So we're going to remove this. So you can see, as far as the number of deaths right now in Arizona, there's very little deviation from if things quote unquote get worse, which in their mind is, in those who are vaccinated, mobility moves toward pre-COVID-19 levels. That is what worse is defined here, and you can see very little change in the death numbers. If we look at the death numbers here, all it does, the daily death numbers, if things get quote unquote worse, we would start to see a leveling off of the deaths in May. And we would see them stay at around 11 rather than going down into the single digits. That's really the only difference. Obviously, there is no danger of hospitalizations being overrun at this point. It is just not in the cards right now without detecting a second surge. And as far as daily infections, I'm going to take out masks again. And you can see really right now, the worst that is projected is a leveling off, not a surge. So in fact, we're at the cross point, sort of the inflection point here. And it's going to be interesting to see what Arizona does, because you can see right now we are supposed to do one of two things. We are supposed to level off, or we are supposed to go down. And we don't know what's going to happen yet. So it's going to be interesting to see which one is more prevalent. Are we going to stay on this sort of much slower path down, or are we going to drop like a rock into current projection of about 121 cases a day in June?
Yeah.
We will not
two,
know.
two different paths there.
Exactly. So we don't know what's going to happen yet, but that's what the projections say, is either it's going to be leveling off or it's going to continue dropping.
Okay.
We just won't know until we get there, but it's happening right now. So if you and I are back talking about this in a couple weeks, and we're saying, well, we leveled off, well, then we know the answer, at least as far as the projections go.
Yeah. Okay, so if you're still looking for appointments, I just want to update some of the sites and some of the changes that are happening. Of course, it was raining when we started. Garrett, I don't know if you have a window there in your office.
It is. No. Yeah, it's raining right now. In fact, the sun is out.
So it's been a crazy day here in Arizona. For those of you not here, we had a bunch of wind yesterday, and then we had like a rare rainy day. This was the day a couple of years ago that we hit like the hottest, earliest day ever, of like 100. And then today it was like 63 degrees when I drove in. So the weather doesn't know what it wants to do, but what we can tell you is it's going to get warmer soon. And because of that, they're having to adjust these vaccination sites and make sure that the volunteers and the staff working out there and the technology, because everything, if you guys have been out there, they update you as you arrive with an iPad. So they're going to plug your information in. iPads don't like Arizona heat and they stop working. So they've got to move some of these sites for all those reasons. The people, the technology, everything. They got to move it inside or put it up at overnight hours. So a lot of stuff is changing. They're kind of switching it over on April 4th. I think that's Easter this year. So a couple of the sites are just going to be closed for Easter and then open the next day. So here's the deal. State Farm Stadium is going to go into an overnight site. Municipal Stadium stays the same for now. That's where I volunteered. It's real close to the station. It's very windy in that site. It's just like next to the zoo, and wind comes down there, and it's cool for everybody to continue to work there. Yuma's setting up their civic center. Dexcom is going to be an indoor drive-through type situation. That's where the Chandler site is moving. So everything's kind of moving around. They're going to communicate with you if your second dose is going to be somewhere different than where your first dose is. The big headline out of Dr. Kara-Chris meeting today is that in Pima County, FEMA is going to be moving in. And there was this back and forth going on. We were pushing them for some answers on what was going on here. Pima County was saying one thing, the state was saying another thing, FEMA was saying something else. Basically, the state agreed to say, we'll let you guys open up a site there. We'll let FEMA open up a site as long as it doesn't take any extra resources from the state, and that they have their own separate supply, that they're not pulling from the state supply. So those things came to an agreement, and about an hour ago they just released that. So that's how that situation is going to change down there in Pima County. It's probably pretty good news for them, Garrett. I haven't looked at the specific numbers of the percent of people who have their vaccination in Pima County in a while. There were some other counties who have been reaching out a lot saying, Katie, we don't have enough.
Let me throw that up really quick.
And
you just mentioned it, so I'll just throw it up really quick.
And while you're pulling that up, I'll just mention one more thing. That State Farm Stadium site, they were doing about 500 doses an hour. So it just shows how quickly they were getting people through there and why they had stayed for so long on that age-based category, because it's easier for these volunteers just to look at your ID and make sure you are who you say you are and you're that certain age, rather than being like, oh, do your health requirements get you into that category? So I know that was frustrating for a lot of people and still is, but that the highest and most important goal at those particular state-run sites were efficiency and getting everybody through quickly, and why they could get a higher percentage of people vaccinated statewide through that site. So
yeah, actually, let's show what all the counties look like right now in their daily vaccinations. So this is what we look like right now for daily vaccinations all across the. Yeah, sorry about that lower third there. This is what everything looks like. We have Arizona right here. It's in alphabetical order, so Apache's first. But you can see really Arizona obviously follows Maricopa County's path. That is pretty typical because Maricopa County is just massive compared to the rest of the state. Although Pima County is doing pretty well itself. You can see it's averaging about 7,500 There has been a slight drop off as of late in Pima County, but you can see as far as everything else is concerned, there's some leveling off and some real big drop offs here and there. Which is very interesting. And we'll see what happens. These state pod sites, the ones that were announced as 16 plus, they were the state pods. So that's Maricopa County, Pima County, and you said Yuma County as well now.
Yep.
Some of the others don't have state pods. So it's interesting to see when the numbers drop because their demand for vaccines drop. You see very interesting sort of deviations between the counties in this.
Yeah. Margaret was asking why not take FEMA's help, and I can answer that at least according to what Dr. Kara Chris said. And she was saying they didn't want to take FEMA's help because they were concerned that then the state would have to supply the extra resources like security and the communication lines and some of the other infrastructure. And they said that they wanted to guarantee that that was separate. So that's at least according to Dr. Kara Christ on why that delay was there. Of course, we heard a lot of back and forth from all the different parties involved, but as of about an hour ago, it's settled on that. Is the stadium site Pfizer or Moderna? At last check, all state-run sites were Pfizer, but double check just in case they're adding anybody else in. I know with the J&J showing up that things were getting jumbled a little bit. Alicia, I don't know if you're asking me or someone else, would you post your progress after getting the vaccine? I had no problem with the vaccine, but I took the advice of the experts who said, and it was really good advice, plan for the vaccine like you would take a test. Get a great night's rest, drink plenty of water, plenty of fluids. So those were the two things that I did to ensure that, because I did not want to miss a day of work or didn't want to miss dealing with my 3 kids. So that was kind of what we did around our house to make sure that everybody was ready to go. Oh, Jackie, thank you for the nice comment. She writes, thanks for all the great info. Really appreciate it. So Jackie, thanks for joining us on here. I can't tell you enough how nice it's been to see you, Garrett, and also to see so many names. And I know we just see your profile pictures there, but it's a little sense of home. We spent the whole year with all you guys. So it's nice to see some of these names coming up in the comments there. All right. We're about to wrap things up. Any other things that you're going to be watching over these next few days into the next week, Garrett?
Well, obviously we are at sort of an inflection point. So now with the mask mandates being released, or there's no more mask mandates. It's really the next few days is going to be really telling. I'd say sometime next week. In fact, Thursday, Friday of next week, we're really going to be able to tell if these mask mandates, if this gamble by the governor is going to pay off. Because if we start to see a surge, it should be detected pretty early, at least sort of the early signs of a surge. So, that doesn't mean we say, oh, look at that, things are going to go crazy. But, we do need to see what's going to happen. We'll start, how it normally works. If there is an increase, we would see case increases first, followed by hospitalizations, followed by ICU, and then followed by death. And that would be what the numbers look like. And we're going to find out next week, essentially, if sort of the numbers are starting to increase. And then obviously in 2 weeks from now, if they continue to increase, then we sort of have to look at each other and say, we might be in at least a moderate surge situation. As of right now, again, there's no way to tell if that's going to happen.
Yeah, and we'll of course track it right along with all of you. I know it's there's already talk out there of a few bars that were posting things to some social media sites, like saying "party's on," and trying to get people out there and I mean, more than just
we also have to remember that, and I've talked to some experts about this too, that a lot of those I saw those pictures too from downtown Scottsdale, and a lot of people partying. The person that is likely in one of those clubs right now, there's a high likelihood that those people were already exposed, because that's the person that was not risk averse early on either. And so there's a good mix of people in there that already have been exposed to the virus. Because people that are willing to go to a nightclub, in a
pandemic,
and basically during a pandemic, and not care about social distancing and masks, are likely have felt that way since the very beginning. So, they've already bought, and again, this is an age group that is not a high risk age group. So as the vaccine is now way more prevalent in the higher risk age groups, hopefully even with some surges in the younger demographics, we would not see sort of a major change in our numbers.
Yeah. One of the things to note there, that prioritization chart that they provide says that 71% of our 65 plus have already gotten the vaccine. 45% of our 55 plus have gotten the vaccine. Obviously, it goes down from there, but that's kind of what Garrett was saying, that risk averse group. So Hopefully that answered some of your questions today. I know we didn't have a ton of time for questions, but we had a ton of stuff to cover, and hopefully we did that for you here today. I want to remind all of you where you can find us. abc15.com/coronavirus is where you can find all our coronavirus reporting. Remember, our newscasts come up in just a matter of minutes, 4 minutes away at 4, 5, 6, and 10 p.m. We also have a newscast over on the CW at 9 p.m. Garrett's Twitter account, it's been a wildly popular place. Garrett, I swear, if I even like tag you in a post, then I feel like my post goes viral just by being next to yours. You can find Garrett's Twitter account at Garrett_Archer. Some really great helpful updates on coronavirus in Arizona, and you can find those pretty much each and every day over on his Twitter account. My Twitter account is at Katie Rammel, and you can also find me, as I mentioned, on Facebook. Boy, there was a little conversation over there last night. Well, I just encourage people to be decent and try to respect the boundaries of business owners and
don't put your face in some poor clerk that is just being paid to work there. Don't make their life miserable. It's not their decision. They didn't decide if, the clerk at Costco or Walmart didn't make the decision to keep the masks. So leave them alone. Just
don't have a viral video from Arizona. Yeah. Don't make us cover that in our newscast. Yeah. Don't make me say your name on the news. What I always say. So just behave, just be good. If you don't want to put a mask on or it's over for you, that's fine. Just pick it up to go or do a mobile order or whatever. Just be polite, be decent to the people who are working hard and likely have been working hard, showing up in public throughout this whole pandemic. So just be kind and take time for them. All right. We appreciate you taking time for us. Margaret's writing no Karens. Exactly. All right. Which I feel bad for Karens. It's not fair, right? Okay. So abc15.com/schools is the very latest, our school reporting right there. And I can't think if I've missed anything else. You can find us on all the social sites, and we'll be right back here. We'll try to be back here, aim to be back here with you on Friday. In the meantime, be safe out there, everybody.